Within the body of that ad was a $50,000 challenge for anyone that could show the law. And to me, $50,000 is a lot of money. So I went after that and did the research based on the fact that I thought, let's put this baby to bed. I'm hearing all these rumors, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'll answer these people's questions that are asking me, and then I'll win this $50,000. And, based on the research that I did throughout the year 2000 and that I'm still doing, I have not found that law. I've asked Congress, we've asked a lot of people in the IRS commissioners, helpers. They can't answer, because if they answer, the American people are going to know that this whole thing is a fraud.
In addition to that irrefutable fact, you must understand that it is not your fault for not being able to always catch up with your rent, mortgage, bills, car notes, food, clothes, your cost of living, or anything you work hard for just to maintain a decent lifestyle. The purpose of all these things that are superficially commercialized in TV commercials, billboards, and just about everything in advertising is to condition your mind to become a consumer, spend your money, and keep you in debt. That is what this is all about. For society to become a consumer of the most elaborate rip-off credit card companies, charging you interest with every purchase you make, all to intentionally keep you behind your monthly payments, in addition to the outrageous hidden fees that are added, enslaving Americans to always remain trapped into debt forever. This has been the primary goal ever since the monetary system of credit was created. So to further understand this matter in greater detail, one must first come to realize that a bank is not your friend, and I say that on a personal level. Every major bank institution and corporation is all about one thing, and that is profit. At face value, the average person would say that's obvious enough for anyone to see. But if you were to do your own research about things like free energy, such as water and electric running vehicles, solar, tidal, and wind power, just to name a few, you will then come to discover that we have more than enough natural resources and good, honest scientists and engineers to create clean, efficient, infinite energy, whether it be to fuel our own cars or to power our homes without ever having to reach our wallets to pay for it ever again. But the problem is that since this poses a major threat to the wide array of money-hungry corporations, this free energy is not able to generate a dime for the global elites. So it is then banned from the commercial industry, oblivious to the toxic waste in the air we breathe, to eliminate the block of profiting from their corporations. All just to stay on top and make sure that nothing never gets in the way of their cash flow. This reality alone separates what you have taken into account when you take a look back into everything you have learned prior to this point. But now that you have a more in-depth perception and understanding how and why our very own government is deceiving the masses with the intent to enslave society on a global scale, it is now time to unveil the secrecy of treason step by step in order for you to easily comprehend the reason why this has been happening all along.
ID Act, a post-9/11 plan to improve security rules for driver's licenses. Finally, details were unveiled Friday, and it's going to mean big changes in the way we get and renew our most common form of ID.
One by one, second graders at the Bonita Country Day School flashed their best smiles, not for school pictures, but for an ID card that hopefully will never get used.
Deadline for Real ID, a requirement that Americans get a more secure driver's license if they want to use it to board planes.
Here's the question. You already provide a photo ID or passport when you travel. So why is the Transportation Security Administration demanding to obtain more private information about you before you can board any commercial airliner in the U.S.? Here are the facts. The TSA, acting in accordance with a congressional mandate, is imposing its so-called Secure Flight Program beginning this weekend. The program will require most people on domestic flights to provide their dates of birth and their gender as a part of this new screening process.
The microchip, the size of a grain of rice, is injected under the skin and gives off a low-frequency radio wave. A scanner reads each chip's identification number. The next step, say researchers, is developing an implantable chip with a global positioning system to track people miles away.
The state has not at least begun the process of implementing this by May 2008. Then the driver's license from that state will no longer be accepted for federal identification purposes. And that's going to be inconvenient for people from that state. Now, many of them may use other IDs. They may use their passport or a federal pass card or some other document. But for those who want to use their driver's license to get on airplanes, they're going to have an incentive to make sure their state at least begins the process of working with us to meet this congressional mandate.
It's a pretty heavy hammer.
The government will make it seem as though the airlines and eventually the railroads and soon the toll takers on highways and city bus drivers and gas station attendants as well all want this information. Don't believe it. It is the government that wants this information. You see, the government, the federal government, is on a path to require a national ID card so it can invade our privacy and track our very movements. This is utterly repugnant to that most American of rights. We must stop this before it comes.
For the last several years, Homeland Security has been working desperately on the prime focus of creating an immense variety of identification devices to gather every individual's personal information. In the year 2006, the U.S. House of Representatives approved legislation with U.S. visit to pass the H.R. 1148 database bill to enforce citizens to comply with the inception of divulging their entire individual identity to Homeland Security. A perfect example to support this fact is the vast majority of kids in schools who have to finger scan themselves just to grab a bite at the cafeteria to adults who are just trying to have a good time at some nightclub. This new method of identification technology was intended to create the illusion of safety and security for you and your children. And although a very low percentage of this may be true, what you need to grasp is that the real purpose for this new approach on the so-called identity protection is to get society comfortable enough to accept this violation of personal information, kind of like in the same way you would care less if you saw someone smoking a cigarette. Now, there are 3 steps on how all this is going to plan out. And the first step is biometrics. This technology is now being used in real time. Basically, how biometrics works is that it records all of your physical characteristics, such as the anatomy of your facial structure, fingerprints, the iris of your eyes, to the behavioral characteristics of your voice, the amount of times your eyes blink, to the dialect of how you speak. Once all of these physical traits are stored inside the biometric system, all of your physical information is then slingshot right back to the Department of Homeland Security. From this point, every individual who has accepted this method of identification is now locked inside a monitor control grid in which records your every transaction, thus inhibiting the right of privacy and personal discretion. This is all being done by the ones in the shadows of key positions and places of authority. So now that you have the basic concept of how this new age of technology is being used against the people, let us further comprehend why this process is being ushered to society in the first place.
The government taking a big new step, looking to build a huge database of people's physical characteristics. It's called biometrics.
I hope that you're not on that terror watch list.
Yeah, we don't know.
Biometric screening is nothing more than a mirage and stepping stone to bring us into the second step, which is the National ID card. In January 26 of 2005, the H.R. 418 Real ID Act was first proposed to Congress in hopes to pass this bill so that U.S. citizens would be forced to carry a national ID card. After the bill was reviewed by dozens of members from the Homeland Security Committee, in February 10th of 2005, it was then passed by the U.S. House of Representatives. Fortunately, this bill still was not able to pass legislation